What's up, everybody? It's Make It Make Sense. We have a very special guest, Dimitri, here. He is a prominent attorney in New York. He's been featured on a lot of, what would you call those? Like morning shows, news stations. Gail King has asked him a couple questions. So if Gail and Oprah can do it, we can as well.
I noticed that you didn't say my last name, but there's a good reason for that. I'm not offended.
I'm Mims here. So can you pronounce your name for us?
Shaknovich. If you take the H out of the middle, it actually becomes kind of phonetic. So
Shaknovich.
There you go.
I do butcher names, so just be fully cognizant of that. Names do get butchered on this channel. My subscribers are always letting me know that.
As you can imagine, I'm used to it with that name. So don't worry.
So yeah, great to have you. He is fully, or even though he is a very serious attorney, he knows that we're a little bit irreverent. So he's never seen, I'm sure he's never seen my intro, but he's about to see it today. So if we break any laws, let us know.
Make it make sense.
Person I follow, what is it called? Make It Make Sense. There's a little guy, Make It Make Sense.
I make it make sense. Are you being nice tonight?
To quote a great media outlet, make that make sense. Okay. Shout out to Mr. Make It Make Sense.
Make it make sense. You knew what was up.
Big Mims. Surfer. Make it make sense. Tell me how you squeeze it. Make it make sense. Tell me about the things that you say. Make it make sense. Tell me about the things in your dreams. Hey, let me work out all the things in between. Make it make sense. Tell me how you squeeze it. Make it make sense. Tell me about the things that you say. Make it make sense. Tell me about the things in your dreams. Hey, let me work out all the things in between. Make it make sense.
Do you want to do this?
That is a man hand. That's a man hand. Hey, that pressure change to y'all. Only a man knows what a man needs.
Okay, I told you we were a little irreverent. So
Wow. Look at that. That was intense.
and that one's mild for one of my intros. So I have actually pinned a comment to his channel. He does a lot of commentary on criminal cases. It is his shtick. So definitely subscribe. And what we will do towards the end of this is we're going to drop the link. This is actually for you guys, which is also his preference. You guys will be able to come up and ask a question if you are inclined to do so. So we'll try to be good. We'll try.
I have very thick skin, so if you think you're gonna offend me or say something off-putting, I assure you, you won't.
Okay, so today we are here and we're discussing Cassie and Diddy. If you did not know, I read the full 35-page summary on my channel. We had open panel discussion on it, and I was surprised that so many people were split. Some people really felt like she was the victim in it, and some people felt like she was a person who was seeking money, and in situations like that, you might get a Diddy. Did you have any idea that this was coming down the pike, given that New York has that that 1 year victim?
The Adult Survivors Act, right? The Me Too movement did all these things, all these great things for women, and then some women said, well, something happened to me so long ago and now I'm out of luck, so what do? That's not fair. And so what many places did, including New York, they enacted a law, right, passed legislation to extend the statute of limitations, right, to say that we'll give you guys a period of time to file a lawsuit. And this is a case that extended over a long period of time, right, involving a pattern of things like coercion and addiction and other things. And so they relied on that statute. I think I may have read somewhere that they filed this lawsuit in anticipation of that statute running. So all those things are important to keep in mind. You mentioned at the top there, this idea that she was after the money. Look, in this country, the way we compensate folks is with money, right? If you want to sue somebody, you can really only do it for money, generally speaking, right? There are criminal enterprises in place, the government's in place to prosecute folks and put them in jail if that's the warranted determination. But generally, right, victims of sexual assault, victims of things in general, sue for money. So it's important not to jump to those kinds of conclusions.
In this situation, before I really start asking you my questions, when you actually saw the lawsuit, for bloggers and people who aren't like, novices of the law, we saw the salacious things, but as an attorney, what stuck out to you?
The detail, right? The standard for filing a lawsuit is very low, right? If you can figure out how to prepare several pieces of paper, or you can get a lawyer to prepare several pieces of paper, as long as it's not frivolous. And by frivolous, what I mean by that is it has to be, as they say, sound in the law and in fact, right? It has to be something that's not baseless. You can file a lawsuit tomorrow. It could take 15 minutes. Obviously, these days, everything's on the internet, right? So this had detail in it. A lot of folks were upset that there were no exhibits attached or pieces of evidence attached. That's customary. Doesn't typically happen that lawsuits are filed with all the evidence. There's a process in place to get the evidence, right, as the case moves forward. But a 35-page lawsuit is something that is telling. It was also filed in the Southern District of New York, here in federal court in Manhattan, which is really the premier court in the country. It's where all the big cases are, all the big prosecutions are.
And that's the center of money.
Yeah. So all of those things jumped out. Some things are normal, some things are not with this case, right? And the way that it was filed. So important to keep kind of all those things in mind.
I want to parse my words here. So, as a layperson, when I saw the lawsuit, what jumped out to me were, I feel like it was extremely detailed, but not detailed enough. I felt like there were things that she left out, and I felt like those things were her bargaining chips for the settlement. Now, you're going to go, based on the law, but that's what I felt. When I saw, I was like, well, I'm pretty sure there were things left out. And now I have heard things from people who might have been around the situation. And let me put my banner up. I believe them when they say that there were things left out. If she did leave things out of that, could those have been bargaining chips for the settlement to happen so quickly?
It's possible. That's speculative, but you got to keep in mind that there are lawyers in place that filed this thing in accordance with certain standards. There's a reason they did what they did, right? The law works in a certain way. In order to file a lawsuit, you have to meet certain what they call elements of causes of action, right? And the degree to which you deviate from that, the degree to which you put in either not enough detail or too much detail can affect the case, right? Can give the other party an edge, can work to hurt you down the line in terms of the substance in the case, right? The evidence in the case. So you got to be careful when doing these kinds of things. Litigation is long and expensive for a reason, right? Things come out in these cases. And oftentimes, when you bring them out and how you bring them out can make or break a case. So you can't really jump to those conclusions and say, well, there's some stuff that's missing, some stuff that's not, and therefore her credibility is impacted. It's possible that's the case. It's also possible that it's not.
I mean, he alluded to the fact that he felt like she was blackmailing him.
Blackmail is one of those words, it jumps out at you. Blackmail, if you hire a lawyer and a lawyer tries to settle a case, is called a settlement demand, right? And that's perfectly legal. Obviously, blackmail isn't, right? So it depends on when those demands and requests came, procedurally what happened, when the timelines fell into place. Certainly, if you come to somebody and say, look, I'm going to ruin your life and expose you unless you give me X amount of money, that's not allowed, right? That's extortion. but we don't know, right? The problem with the fact that this case settled so quickly is we don't know. We don't know what the evidence was. We don't know what happened. And look, we'll never find out unless there's a criminal case, and we can't assume that there will be. We have to actually assume that there won't be, right? We don't know. We don't know what will happen. And so, or rather what happened and when certain things happen. So that was one of the points in settling this case so early, right? That's what took place.
So, okay. I spoke to an attorney, and she, shout out to Girl Is That Legal. She believes that Diddy didn't pay anything. She feels as though the lawsuit was settled through his employment insurance. Is it customary for someone with a company his large to have employment insurance valued at like $30 million or more?
Well, it's not even that. Employment insurance, generally speaking, doesn't cover what are called intentional acts, right? This lawsuit was ripe with intentional acts. Look, it's possible that he has some, he's obviously a special guy that has a whole special enterprise behind him, and it's possible he has some unique insurance policy in place. Generally speaking, you don't have insurances that cover sexual assault.
Okay. I mean, she's an attorney, so she explained it to me in greater detail, but the gist of it was she felt as though she mentioned a lot of things about him being her employer in the lawsuit so that she could go after the enterprise, not just Diddy. So it would be in their best interest for the company to help settle this, as opposed to it coming necessarily out of pocket from him. And then once they settle it, they can kind of push him out, so he'll no longer be the face of the brand, so that the brand won't tank as he,
Yep. No, I see that. Again, it's possible, right? It depends. Insurance companies have an option to what's called disclaim, right? Just say that, look, we don't cover these acts and go take a hike. I don't know if that's what happened here. It's possible that this was an employment-related action as they saw it, and so they covered the claim.
Okay. Okay. So a few people said some things, and I want to know if you feel like they might be liable. One being Aubrey O'Day. Is this enough to make her liable?
Do you think Diddy put the hit out on Pac? Was a loaded question. No pun intended.
Okay, let me say this. You know damn well we can't talk about that shit because, people getting murdered in the streets is a real thing. But I did spend a very, very, one of the most interesting nights of my life with Suge Knight. And I did ask him who killed Pac. And I also hung out with Biggie's mom at the Duets album release, and I asked her who killed Biggie.
Did they answer you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So what you're referring to is defamation, right? That's what this is. Defamation is tough, right? The reason celebrities don't sue for defamation all the time is because in order to prove defamation as it relates to public figures, you have to prove really that there was
they damaged you.
No, you have to prove what's called actual. Well, yes, but that's if it's in writing, there are ways around that. You have to prove what's called actual malice. You have to prove that the statement was made with some degree of culpability, right? That the person making the statement either knew it was false or had reason to believe it was false. Suing for defamation, if you're famous, is very, very hard. That's why nobody does it, right? That's why there are, gossip columns out there saying virtually whatever they want about celebrities, and they never get sued because it's impossible to win those lawsuits.
Well, somebody just put in the comment section, did Tasha K set precedent for people to begin suing and winning? Because I had heard that defamation was very hard to prove, but then there are so many cases for people like me and other bloggers now because Cardi won against Tasha K?
Well, it's constitutional, right? So it would have to go up to the Supreme Court. The problem with, if you remember when Trump was running the first time around, he would say, I'm going to open up the libel laws. Remember that?
Yes.
The problem with opening, and what he meant by that was that famous people like me should be able to sue if journalists say something about them that ends up not true. The problem with that is you run into First Amendment limitations, right? The First Amendment that accounts for free speech says that you can't limit somebody's ability to say something unless there's some real danger attached to that, right? And if you expand defamation to that degree to include public figures, you're going to run afoul of the First Amendment. And so I don't think that the actual malice requirement, which is what really this is referring to, will go anywhere. It's just too ingrained in our system of laws.
Okay. Let's get back to Cassie. So why do you believe that criminal charges weren't filed?
So look, could be several reasons. Number one, she didn't go and make a complaint. That's possible. Number two, she did and then withdrew it to some degree. It's also possible. Number three, she went, made the complaint, and they didn't believe her, right? They didn't think there was enough evidence to convict him. Don't forget, criminal cases are different than civil cases. Civil cases you could just file if you find a lawyer who's willing to foot the expense, then you can do it. A criminal case, you got to get the government to put out a whole lot of money, right, to prosecute a guy that they know is going to put up a strong defense. It's going to hire good lawyers and expensive investigators and so on and so forth. Beyond that, they have to, at some point, take the case to a jury, presumably, and prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, right, which is very hard. It's not the same as the preponderance of the evidence civil standard, right? You combine all those things, you better have an airtight case. And we don't know what's going on there. We don't know if they're investigating. We don't know if charges will come, if an indictment will come, or if nothing will come at all, right? We have to, in fact, presume that nothing will happen, right? Even if he was charged and indicted, he will be presumed innocent. He hasn't been anything like that. So the presumption has to remain with innocence. But let's see. I mean, anybody can, upon investigation and probable cause determination, be arrested.
Someone says that the statute of limitations ran out. This was 10 to 11 years ago.
No, the statute of limitations for those kinds of charges. Typically, the way it works, depending on where you are, I know this case was brought in New York. The conduct in the lawsuit ranged, in various places. But depending on where you are in the country, the more serious that the charge gets, you're talking about your murders, your rapes, your arsons, your kidnappings. The statutes of limitations are very, very long for obvious reasons, right? Because they're very serious.
Okay. Before we go on, I just wanted you guys to see Dimitri does have a channel. I have Dimitri Shaknovich.
Good job. Wow.
He does have a channel.
I'm impressed. It usually takes people longer.
So I just wanted to show you guys. I have dropped the link, but he has extensive commentary on a lot of court cases, especially like prominent court cases. So definitely check him out. Like I said, the link is not only dropped, but it's pinned in at the top of your chat. So let's see. Did you expect it to go to trial?
Statistically speaking, virtually no cases go to trial, right? So no, just because statistically it almost never happens, right? Trials, particularly this kind of trial, would be very expensive, very long. Not that he would have problems with money. I'm just saying it's a commitment in more ways than one. In this particular case, obviously it's financially, it's very taxing, emotionally, and various other ways. So no.
I don't know that he wouldn't have problems with money. After I saw Kylie Jenner was a fake billionaire, anybody could be one.
Maybe. I can't imagine he would have problems paying his lawyers, but hey, what do I know?
Oh, well, I just saw an interview where he didn't pay Tyson Beckford. He had hired Tyson to be the face of Sean John for $1.5 million. He just stopped paying. We don't know.
Yeah, well, when somebody's in court, it's a bit different, you know. Mm-hmm. The degree of urgency is different.
Just saying.
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay, so we went through the employment insurance. So when I read through, I noticed that Cassie made a point to say that there were attorneys and people from the record label who would kind of force her to speak to him. Are they liable in any way? Could she go after the people who, put her in, who she alleges to be her abuser's hands?
Yeah, and she sued a whole bunch of people, right? And what would happen in this case as time passed is you would determine if there are any more parties that come into the case, right? If any more parties should be serving as witnesses in the case. The problem is that it ended so quick that we don't really know, right? There could have been more parties brought in, right? These lawsuits account for that, right? They bring a case saying, hey, we don't know maybe everything that happened with everybody. We don't remember certain things, but we leave that possibility open. I presume that the settlement agreement included something called a release, which accounted for a release of liability for, I'm assuming, anybody affiliated with P. Diddy or the company.
I was really surprised that I did not see anything that specifically said that there was an NDA in place. I know that an NDA can't stop you from coming forward if a crime has been committed, but I didn't see her detail that he forced her to sign an NDA. Do you think that she had one?
It doesn't matter, right? Because of exactly what you said, right? An NDA is a contract, just like anything else. If you breach a contract, meaning if you say things that you're prohibited from saying in the NDA, or because of the NDA rather, then you get sued for damages, right? You can't contract around somebody going to the police or testifying or things of that nature, right? Otherwise, rich people would never go to jail. They would just pay people off to not testify in court.
Do rich people go to jail?
I know rich people have went to jail. So,
okay. So let me see. Can she still go after the other executives, even though Diddy, could she, I know she settled with Diddy, but could she still technically do any of that?
Again, it depends on what's in the settlement agreement, right? If the settlement agreement is so broad, right? I'm assuming that when Diddy settled this case, he wanted to make it so broad that she would probably leave him alone forever. And by leave him alone, I mean leave alone the people around him, right? And I'm sure the net was cast pretty wide. Because the whole point of settling something like this is I don't want to deal with it anymore, and I never want to deal with it again, right? So it's possible, but I'm assuming the contract is broad enough to include anyone who may be involved here.
Sometimes we see instances where maybe the victim does not actually file charges, but the DA or someone decides to do that. Could that still happen now with Diddy?
Yeah, again, the victim never files charges, right? The prosecutor always files charges. The victim is the one who comes forward and cooperates. And you can't contract around that in a settlement or an NDA or in anything else.
So they could, but chances are they won't.
I wouldn't say chances are they won't. I would say we have to presume that they won't. We can't presume that we can't presume a negative, right? Right now, we don't know if they're investigating something or not. So we will see is the easy answer.
I believe that something came out that said that he was in an open investigation, and then the department came back and said, no, that person was just a little overzealous in their comments, and that's not the case. Is that customary? Because I've never seen someone who is specifically there to talk to the media give something so wrong out.
Yeah, I mean, all of these questions, especially at that initial stage, are really credibility questions, right? We don't know the circumstances under which a complaint was made, if a complaint was made. It may not have been made. We don't know, right? Certainly, you can't call somebody and say, pay me money or I'm going to go to the police. That's a crime, right? So we don't really know the degree to which any investigation took place. So all those kinds of statements are purely speculative.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to drop the link. He is very comfortable speaking to anybody who might have a legal question regarding this case. And because there are so many cases, we'll probably talk after this about maybe if he wants to come back and talk to us about the LA Reid, some of the stuff that came out about Russell Simmons, And I think there was one other of course, Kiki Palmer. They are having a hearing very soon. So the link has been dropped. Let me see. The blackmail criminal.
Take your time. I'm good.
Well, some of the questions that you've asked, you've actually answered more than one question with the question.
Yeah, I there are certain areas here that people want covered, and I'm kind of familiar with those already, so we can kind of keep going down the list.
How long have you been practicing law?
10 years.
Okay. And are there any names that you can give us of?
Can't ever give you names. No. That is a big no in my line of work.
You had to ask. Okay, so
no.
We have a couple people backstage. First person was trending at some point. Hello. Trending.
I'm here. I was double muted. I'm sorry. Hey, Mims. Hey, Dimitri.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I am great. What can I do for you?
Well, I was first just going to say, I thought I had questions. Mims asked all the good questions. So I just wanted to say I'm really happy to see Mims. Thank you for, having an attorney on your channel to talk about something that's so sensitive. And because people did have a lot of questions, and this is very, it's hot. It's sensitive, it's triggering, it's everything. And with it being civil and it resulting in money, I do think that it's really, really good that this is how some of it's being, the news is being delivered, I guess. I love court documents, and I just want to say, Mims, I admire you. I'm probably going to copy this idea for other things later. But no, you answered all the questions I wrote down, so I just appreciate it. I'll stay in the bushes. I just want to say hey, though.
Okay, well, I'm sorry I asked all the questions that you wanted to ask.
It's a good thing, Mims. You did good.
Okay, well, thank you, trending at some point.
Bye.
Okay, the next one is Queen Tulsa. Hello, Queen Tulsa.
Greetings. Hi, greetings, and thank you for having me. So my question is for Mr. Diddy. My question would be, how can we as the public encourage something to be done? Because I'm a survivor. I was triggered, and how do we keep this conversation going? Is there any complaints that that we could make for them to keep open an investigation? Is there a way that the public can enforce that?
Are you referring to this particular case or other cases?
Well, this one because it's a hot topic right now, but this is just a foundation to other cases in the future.
No, you're right about that. I mean, look, it's over the past several years, significant progress has been made, right? These cases, look, and I said this on another podcast, this case is really a complex domestic violence case. That's what this is, right? And domestic violence cases are incredibly tough. That's why prosecutors' offices have whole divisions in place that specialize in prosecuting domestic violence cases. And the reason that domestic violence cases are so tough is because you have a relationship, an intimate relationship between two people, at least on some level, in some way, that at some point was presumably consensual, right? Was presumably appropriate, and at some point turned inappropriate and non-consensual. And the difficulty with these cases is figuring out when that happened, right? And in the past X amount of years, progress was certainly made in how we analyze those questions, right? Experts now come forward to discuss how victims of assaults suppress information and whether or not those pieces of information can be relied upon in court. So it's certainly a discussion that is being had, and progress is being made in that regard. And you see a lot of these kinds of cases often, and that's why.
Absolutely. And as a married woman, I wanted to say this. Even as a married woman, the R word can be committed, because if the wife says no and the husband decides to move forward, that's that part, right? So I just wanted to bring clarification and see how, because I'm an advocate and activist, and so I want to make sure I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing in the community. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you, Mims. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
You as
And you're
well.
absolutely right about that. There was a period of time when, you weren't able to prosecute that
The R word, right?
in marriages, and now you can. So again, progress always being made. I mean, that's the nature of the world we live in. Progress.
Okay. And I know that you have a YouTube. Do you have like an Instagram or anything like that?
Yeah, one of the benefits of having a unique name that nobody can pronounce is that you could use the same handle on everything. So I do have an Instagram and a Facebook and then Twitter and all these things. It's at DShackLaw. It's all, oh, look at that. There you go.
Okay, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for your time. Thank you, Mims, for sharing him with us.
Thank you.
My name is Queen Tulsa, and back to you guys in the studio.
Queen Tulsa is a character. There was another question that I wanted to ask before we bring up some more people.
Go ahead.
There's so much speculation about the amount. So 30 million was the amount. Could the settlement have been for more than the 30? Or do you think it was just for the amount that she initially requested?
I'm going to give you a non-answer, and that's just because I don't know, and I can't speculate, because it's not going to do anybody any good. Yes, it could have been for more. It could have been for less. It could have been for anything. I can't, the way that damages work is that when you file a lawsuit, you can allege a number, and that doesn't necessarily mean that's the number that the case is worth, or that's the number that the case is settled for, or that's the number that the plaintiff wants to win, right? So damages are tough. And again, one of the things with this kind of case is we'll really never know.
Okay. All right. Bap, you are up next. Hello.
Hey.
Hello.
Hey,
Welcome.
yeah. The only question I had was, I guess maybe more of a ask for elaboration, because I think in the beginning of the live you had mentioned that more SA victims go for like civil liability rather than like criminal prosecution, and I just wanted to see if you could elaborate on that more as far as why they do.
Sure. Well, I don't know that I said that they go for civil more than criminal. What I said is that when you file a lawsuit, you're more in control, right? A criminal case is initiated by police making an arrest, and that ultimately depends on the police. And a victim can make a complaint and try to push a complaint, and the police don't have to arrest. A lawsuit is different. Like I said, you can file a lawsuit in court tomorrow if you want, right? So it's just a faster route, because you hold in your hands the mechanism for relief, whereas you don't really in a criminal process.
That's the answer I was looking for, essentially, because there's a lot of people who ask the whys of, oh, well, why aren't they seeking justice rather than money? And I'm like, seeking justice isn't something that you necessarily have control over, but you can, through civil liability, at least hit somebody in their pockets. And so that's all I wanted.
No, that's right. Listen, in this country, we've determined that when people do bad things, you make them give up money. We've determined that's the best deterrent for stopping people to do bad things, right? And that's what was sought out here.
All right, and that's all I came up to ask about. So y'all have a good day.
You as well. Thank you for coming up. Someone said in the chat that she did not ask for 30 million. As I understood it, that's what she said. And I know that is what Diddy's lawyer said. She had been constantly. So I don't know if that's where the amount came in. If you know how much, Autumn's mom, let us know. Or if it's unknown, please let us know. Monique, you're up. Welcome to the channel. Monique, you're muted. Monique, you're still muted. I'm going to drop you down, but I'll come back up to you. Channel G is the one. Welcome to the channel.
Hey, so I think this is a very interesting topic, but I have two questions for Mr. Lori guy.
Good call. Good
Mr.
call.
Dimitri.
Don't try to pronounce it. Good call.
Okay.
Okay, y'all. If I can pronounce it, and I butcher names all the time. It's Shaknovich.
Shaknovich. Okay.
Did I get it right?
Don't listen to him. It's not that easy. Yes, you got it right.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So
Go ahead.
I have two questions.
Yep.
I know that federal laws are different than state laws, and there's multiple reasons for why that is, right? Because different populations need different things. But what I don't understand, or I have a very difficult time understanding, why assault is ever limited. Meaning, I'm a victim of whatever it is. Why? I don't know. Can we say assault?
Yeah, the R word is one of those words
Okay.
that YouTube doesn't like.
I never understand why there's ever a limitation of, especially with SA, because we all know if you go do any type of research or empirical data that you search, there is sometimes, and most of the time, I feel like a very long time for the victim to get up their strength or, their courage, whatever it is, to come forward. Then there's fear. And then there's, like you said earlier, people who have money. It's difficult to make that stick. But my question is, so I never understand why, if I'm the victim and I'm going to have trauma for the rest of my life, why it's limited to whatever time stamp the court or the state gives the victim to talk about it. Because if you're a victim for the rest of your life. It's not that you're going to wake up every day and walk around as a victim, but you could be triggered, like some other people said before. So that's question one. And I don't know that you have the answer to that. But my second question is, I know a lot of people, especially when it's involving a celebrity, they will immediately start saying this person it's a money grab. So I'm not an attorney. I am very educated, but I'm not an attorney. But one of the questions that I always have about people who say it's a money grab, you could tell me what you think. So my theory is, these type of actions happen under the cover of dark. So it's very difficult to, unless you have them on video, unless you have someone recorded saying I did X, Y, and Z, you bring it to court. Even if you did an R kit on that person, on that victim, all the perpetrator has to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that was consensual. So at that point, it throws out, okay, well, she has proof on this R kit that they had some sort of intercourse or whatever. So my question is always like, I would assume as an attorney of said victim, I'm going to come to that person and say, hey, listen, this is a weak case because we don't have DNA. And if we do have DNA, this person is just saying it's consensual. We have no proof other than that. So here's your options. You can try to move forward, but you're taking your chance with a jury that most likely knows the perpetrator, possibly if they're famous, like P. Diddy. So it's a weak case, so you're probably going to lose. So your other option is to just say, ask for money, because I'm not going to be able to get this person prosecuted and go to jail. That won't happen. So that's my question about the attorney and the money girl thing, because I feel like people will assume, well, she just wanted some money or he just wanted some money and they wanted to extort this individual, but it's very difficult to prove. So I'm sorry, I took a long time, but those are my two questions.
No, first of all, great questions. The first one is particularly great. So let me start with the first one first. You're absolutely right. Victims suffer for their whole lives, right? The way our law works is, I guess I'll kind of start big picture, right? Our country was founded, right, in an effort to fight government tyranny. And the way we fight government tyranny is we protect. It may sound weird and it may sound counterintuitive, but we protect people that are accused of bad things. Why? Because if the government, right, the court system, obviously the police, prosecutors, have the authority to put people in jail and issue judgments that may handicap a person financially, we have to give that person accused of something really bad safeguards that are put in place. One of those safeguards is the statute of limitations, right? One of those safeguards says that, look, if somebody did something really bad, there has to be a point in time where we limit the degree to which that person can be held accountable. Because at some point, witnesses may forget, evidence may get lost, right, the reliability of a case may diminish. And so that's the argument that is made for statutes of limitations and for periods of exposure, as they call them, to not be endless. Okay. Is that, was that clear, or am I?
No, yeah, I understand. I it's difficult for me because I feel like our country was founded by men, essentially, you know, and women haven't had the rights. Anyway, I'm not even gonna go down that rabbit hole, but it does feel like, to me, it seems like exactly what you're saying, which is it's not saying it this way, but it's saying it this way. It's basically saying we have to protect the perpetrator, and we can't let this go on and on into perpetuity for the rest of their lives. They have this hanging over their head. I'm a therapist, and I've worked in the court systems and all that. So it's hard for me to understand that process, but I do get it. You know, they put these laws in place for a reason. So you gave a good explanation.
No, and I totally get what you're saying as well. I mean, I completely, and I'm not fighting with you that that's what you're saying is true, that it's a lifelong suffering in many cases. Now, as to your second question, I think it had something to do with money. I kind of lost it at the end.
What happens, at least from my perspective, is that especially if the alleged perpetrator is famous, for whatever reason, people lose their mind. They're like, oh, I don't know, you know, that type of thing, because this person is famous and they love them. So what happens, in my opinion, is I'm a victim. So I'm Cassie in this case. This happened to me for however many years, whatever the case may be. I finally get the courage up to say this happened to me. But the problem is, because the person I'm accusing is famous or well known, then what happens if this, I feel like, is not what the public sees. So what happens is Cassie's attorney goes to her and says, he said it was consensual. And I'm talking about the R word. He said it was consensual. And so unless you have him on videotape, unless you have him admitting out loud, again, recorded, to whatever said crime, it's going to be incredibly difficult because, like I said before, these types of things happen under the cover of dark. So it's my word against hers, and so, or his. So then what happens is your attorney comes to you, Cassie, hey, listen, we don't have any DNA, and the DNA we have, he said it was consensual. So we kind of got to throw that out. And then the other part to that is, if we take this to trial, it's very likely that it will, you will get a not guilty plea. So the best thing for you, if you really want to get him, is to say, listen, I'm gonna hit you in your pockets. And then, but what happens is the public views that as, in my opinion, then she just wanted money anyways. When in reality, I feel like they have no other choice, because I really want this person to go to jail. I really want them to admit to the wrongdoing, but they're not going to do it, right? And especially if they're powerful, a lot of times they have the best attorneys. They're never going to have to say anything. So then Cassie's attorney states, hey, this is the best route for us to at least get some justice. It's monetary, but it's, you know what I'm saying? So that's really my question.
And embarrass him in the court of public opinion.
Correct.
That was the other byproduct of this.
Look, a lawyer's job is to provide his client with adequate advice in kind of the realm of the law and not worry about all the other stuff. And I'm assuming her lawyer did that here, right? That's the lawyer's job, not to worry about what the court of public opinion will say and what folks in the media will say, but what is in the best interest of the client, right? A lawyer isn't allowed by ethical rules to make a settlement decision on behalf of a client. A lawyer is just supposed to give the client all the information, pros and cons. And that's probably what happened here. I'm assuming they made an informed decision.
Okay, that's it. That's all.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Is it Channel?
I'm not playing with you. It's Chanel.
Okay. I was just playing with you. Have a good one. I do have a question. Before we move on to the next person, someone made a good point in the chat about R. Kelly being taken down because of the trafficking. The claims of trafficking with Cassie, did they sound strong to you? I can read it. If you would like.
Sure, go ahead.
It says, third cause of action, violation of the California Trafficking Victims Protection Act. Plaintiff repeats and realleges each and every allegation in all of the preceding paragraphs is if fully set forth herein. Plaintiff is a victim of sex trafficking within the meaning of California Penal Code and is therefore entitled to bring a civil action under that same code. The defendant's acts and omissions taken separately and or together as outlined constitute a violation of the California Civil Code 52.5. Specifically, defendant Sean Combs perpetrated sex trafficking of Ms. Ventura by requiring her to engage in forced sexual acts in the state of California, and all defendants benefited from Mr. Combs' venture by holding Ms. Ventura, an artist signed with defendant Bad Boy Records and otherwise employed by defendant Doe corporations, captive to Mr. Combs' demands and desires. At all relevant times, defendants participated in and facilitated the harboring and transportation of the plaintiff for purposes of sex induced by force, fraud, and coercion. You want me to read the whole?
Oh, is that it? Okay. What jumps out at me there is that word Doe defendants, right? You read that phrase there. What that means is there are people that were involved here that we didn't bring into the lawsuit for whatever reason. Either we didn't know what their role is, either we don't know who they are or where they are. We don't know their exact names. We don't remember certain things about them. But when you talk about things like trafficking, all those kinds of people matter, right? And again, that's why I said at the outset, right? There are more people that could have come into this case, right? He kind of shut it down with the settlement, and that'll be that. But trafficking implies involvement that was pervasive among some group, and you need to know who the members of that group were and their respective degrees of involvement.
Okay. I saw that in the chat, and it was one of my questions. So next person up is Auntie.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, hi, Mims. Hi, Dimitri. How are you?
Hi.
Okay, so I have a question. So I kind of want to speak to the time frame of the settlement. So typically, when a lawsuit is filed, the defendant will file an answer, right, to the plaintiff's suit. In this case, no answer was filed, no request for production, discovery. I'm just curious, have you ever seen it in a case that you've handled before? Because in my experience, I'm not an attorney, but I have worked in personal auto litigation, and I've never seen a settlement within 24 hours of a suit without at least an answer being filed, unless a courtesy copy was filed. So you knew the suit was coming and you had time to start entering into settlement, and then you didn't reach settlement and then the suit was filed. So I'm just kind of curious about your experience. Have you ever seen a case like that?
I have. I don't recall exactly if I've seen a case that settles within 24 hours, but I have seen fast settlements. Don't forget, right? You mentioned that typically after the filing of a complaint, there's an answer. That's absolutely correct. The law gives you 3, 4, 5 weeks sometimes to file that answer. There's a reason for that, right? The reason for that is that they want the defendants to get acquainted with the case, to familiarize themselves with the allegations, to figure out how to best proceed, and to see if they could settle. You got to understand, the court system needs cases to settle, right? The rules of evidence encourage settlement by imposing a rule that settlement negotiations aren't admissible at a trial. There's a reason for that. The courts encourage parties to resolve cases because otherwise they wouldn't be able to try all those cases effectively, right? They would be overburdened, particularly in a busy place like New York or California. And so I don't recall exactly if I've seen one this fast, but I have seen fast settlements. They happen all the time.
Okay, yeah, that's pretty much my question, because I've dealt with a lot of lawsuits in my experience as well, and I just can't recall ever seeing a settlement within 24 hours, unless, like I said, a courtesy copy was sent first, and we had already went into settlement negotiations, and then the suit was filed, and maybe, but I just never seen anything that fast. So I'm just curious about your experience in that. Thank you, guys.
Sure. We also don't know. There may have been settlement negotiations that were ongoing before this hit the press. Right, we just, those are things we'll never know.
Well, she did say that. I mean, the attorney did say that Cassie had been saying that this was coming down the pike. So,
right. So there you go. They may have had that kind of discussion already.
Oh, we got a couple super chats. I didn't even see it. Bobby Wagner, thank you so much for the super sticker. And Voodoo Doll TV, I hope Cassie got 200 million. Who will know? Other than her and her son and her husband, who seemed happy, and who probably will leave the country. Let's see. Joanna, welcome. Oh, I know Joanna.
Hey, nice to chat with you again, Mims. How are you?
I'm good, and yourself?
Good. Hey, Mr. Dimitri Shakinovich Esquire, how are you?
Hi, I am good. How are
You
you?
got the whole name and title. Okay.
Had to. My linguistics be on point, so I had to show it a little bit. But my questions were kind of to piggyback off of what y'all were discussing a little bit ago previously. So with the way that things were worded, because I did listen to the whole 35-page complaint being read on this channel. Subscribe if you haven't. Like the video as well.
Definitely like the video.
The way that they worded some things and the specificity with which they put the statutes in that were violated federally and on a state level kind of laid the groundwork for a criminal case to be put forth, in my opinion. And because she also didn't just sue him, she sued Bad Boy, she sued Epic, which is another reason I think it got settled so quick, because those pockets at Epic are very deep. And everybody at the parent company, Epic, were like, yeah, let's go ahead and just get this out the way.
Dimitri,
With all
right
of
now,
those people.
Dimitri is hearing what you're saying right now and thinking speculative.
No. Go ahead.
I'm playing with Joanna.
Yeah, no. With all that, would there be, do you think, a case, especially since there were accusations of the trafficking in multiple different states and out of the country as well, because the lawsuit did say that there were things that happened that were taken abroad. Do you think that that will be at all kind of laying the groundwork if they did in California or New York, which the statutes of limitations are longer than in other places? Would that be kind of laying the groundwork for a criminal prosecution? And would there possibly be some kind of RICO tied in, because there were so many different people at so many different levels that participated in it, with it being so much trafficking involved?
Yeah, great questions. Look, in terms of the criminal stuff, all sexual assault lawsuits have information in them that sounds criminal, right? Because it's the same thing. The cause of action is very similar to what the criminal charge would be. In terms of RICO, to prove a RICO charge, you have to prove on some level that there was some enterprise, right? That there was some collection of people that ran some sort of conspiracy to engage in this kind of conduct. And that's why I don't think it was charged as, or RICO is really at play here, because you would have to prove an organization was at fault here. A criminal organization, right? RICO was made for the mob, right? That's why it exists. And in terms of the deep pockets, yeah, it's possible. Look, litigation costs certainly come into consideration when you're discussing settlement, and it's possible that deep pockets could have played some role. Can't rule that out, but we'll never know.
Gotcha. Yeah, and that was, I guess, pretty much it for me. Like I said, I was thinking, okay, that was the way that they got R. Kelly, like the comment said earlier. So I'm like, if it was executives at Epic, aside from him, and within Bad Boy and different security people and all that were participating in it, or enabling him and encouraging him to participate in it, because they wanted to keep him at the helm of the company, since she also sued them and they would possibly be liable, would they be able to be wrapped up in that? But you pretty much answered that though, so I appreciate that. And yeah, I agree with the other super chat. Kind of, I hope she got 300 million and not 2. She deserves it. That was a lot.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Joanna. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Y'all have a good evening.
You too. Someone says, can Cassie, after winning this civil suit, still come back later and pursue a criminal case?
Yeah, you can't settle a criminal case. You can't settle around a criminal case. So that will have no impact on her ability to pursue a criminal case.
Okay. Autumn's mom.
Hi,
Hey, how's it going?
Mims. How you doing? I wanted to. Hi, Dimitri. How you doing?
I am good. How are you?
I'm well. First, I want to congratulate you, Mims, on the 80K subscribers. Congratulations.
Oh, thank
I
you.
remember when you didn't even have a theme song. Now look where you at. Second, yeah. As far as the 30 million, just real quick, that was never stated. That was not in the 35-page documents that you read here on your channel or anywhere else. Where that came from was apparently Diddy's attorneys came out and said that she was trying to blackmail them and that she was offered 30 million and turned it down. So somehow the blogs ran with that number and attached it to this case. And once something's out there, it's out there. Now, the question that I have for Mr. Dimitri is this. Would public pressure, if applied to, say, the FBI or prosecutors in any of the states mentioned in the 35-page documentation, if everybody that's so outraged and feels as though criminal charges need to be brought and started calling, emailing, doing what social media starts to do, could that possibly prompt them to initiate an investigation if one has not already been done?
Look, the easy answer to that is it shouldn't, right? Because we hope that prosecutors act in accordance with justice, right? And governing agencies act in accordance with justice. Now, what you're saying is, well, if they're not, then we have to apply some pressure.
Mm-hmm.
And I get that sentiment. Look, in this country, we have to rely on the good faith of the people that make these decisions. And they don't always make the right decisions. And they very often make mistakes and act improperly and do really, really bad things. But if we let the media and public pressure dictate what they do, we can open up a whole lot of other problems.
Yeah, but sometimes with us, a pressure needs to be applied. And what I'm thinking is Breonna Taylor.
Yep.
At first, they did not want to bring forth charges, but because people saw the case and saw how they weren't ready to move forward, public pressure went forward and then sought justice in that case. And the list goes on and the list goes on. So I get your optimistic view on how the justice system is supposed to work, but us of, certain complexions know that sometimes that is not how we are able to garner justice. Sometimes we have to band together and demand justice. So what I'm thinking, I know you have to say what you say, but for everybody that's so outraged and feels as though criminal charges,
by the way,
needed to be brought and pressure needed to be applied and this, that, and the third. Well, here's the time that y'all can get your little Twitter fingers and Instagram fingers and everything together and call the FBI, call the California prosecutors, call the New York prosecutors. You have the documents, you know what crimes were quote unquote alleged, and just say that you would like that they would look into it and start an investigation. Let's see what gets done. Hello. That's all I came to say. Because a lot of people complain about things and, oh, she should have done this and she should have done that. I think she did what was smart for her. First of all, she got her story out there. She got to testify without having any rebuttals or anything brought up against her. People then came out and quote unquote dropped evidence to prove her case for her, right? And now, to me, she's the safest person in the world, because Diddy better hope she don't get a cold, because nothing can happen to her going forward, because all eyes are going to be on him. So if they're not already looking into a case and the case hasn't been open, if people want something to do, everybody pick up your phone, go to your internet, and do what it needs to be done if you feel like that needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you, Autumn's mom.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I actually have to go run get my kid.
Yes, yes. I was about to say we have one more person, but BB, it shows your device is not connected, so we can't actually pull you up. So we have had him here for an hour. He's a very busy guy, but he has agreed to come back for some other cases so that we could discuss. So thank you so much, Dimitri.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me. I had a great time. I hope there was some information that I was able to bring forth.
Before you go, we dropped the link to your channel that as they know, but do you take callers? What's your expertise on YouTube?
I typically just post analysis videos and interviews with people that I find interesting. It was a channel started for my students. I don't do it for any marketing or business reason. It's not I don't make money from it or anything. So it's purely informative. If you want to go check it out, perhaps you'll enjoy it.
All right. Well, it's been dropped. I definitely will share it in the community tab, and we'll see you hopefully soon.
Thank you, everybody. It was a pleasure. Thanks so much.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.